Hello, everybody. Grant Hunter here with another Product Growth Leaders topic of the week. Steve, we've got a research thing that we've seen, and it seems like every time we see research about it, it says the same thing. I think the one that we've quoted before is product management is only clearly defined and understood like 21% of organizations.
21%.
Uh, and at times it feels like a lot of the confusion that happens out there is because of this. If we go cause effect, right? Product management is hard because it's not clearly defined and understood. Product management is ambiguous because of product management is seen as not valued because of. And so why don't we talk about defining product management this week? What do you think?
Sounds like a good plan. And I think one of the big issues is that product management has failed to clearly define product management.
Oh, but we're gonna get into that conversation of the poll, and I think we've got people on both sides of that here.
Spicy
To
Steve.
well, Steve is always spicy. To discuss this topic with us, we've got Faith Peterson and Cory Bryan for a nice, concise panel because I believe this is going to be a lot of discussion points. Right, this is stuff that I think I could talk a lot about, and I'm sure Steve, Cory, and Faith can as well. And we started by putting this question in the community on Monday. In an ideal world, how would you define the role of product management? And Steve, I believe this is one of my big ones. We didn't get as many answers as we normally get. And we started with Paul Hatala, ensuring that the success of the organization is both on purpose and ongoing. This includes ensuring that the product solves high priority market problems in a manner that is attractive to the business. And he, to your liking, said, am I the only one imagining the Bobs from Office Space asking, what would you say you do here? I mean, that's one of your favorite ones. Jason Weber, CEO of a mini business, right? Question mark. That's how it usually sold, but far from the reality. I would be happy with the ability to set product direction, messaging, and strategy with the freedom to pivot as feedback from the market is learned, but we don't have that. And this is all building to something. Anthony Dondoran said, navigating uncertainty. If the path is certain, if all the risks are known and can be quantified, we don't need a product manager. If there's uncertainty as opposed to risk, then product management allows the organization to find its way through that uncertainty to deliver value. Really like that one. And Glenn Pride, the PM focuses on the market's mixed signals and creates a coherent laser-like definition of the market problem. And I get through it all of the, and I thought those are all pretty good. And we can talk about some of those things. And then Cory comes in with his answer. Do you know where I'm going here, Cory? Either your answer is
find out.
Either your answer is Maverick is the answer to the ideal world, how you define product management. Tom Cruise is the ideal definition of how you would define product management. Or Top Gun is, I'm trying to get clarity to it. So for those who haven't been in the community, Cory shared a GIF, or is it a GIF? That's an argument with my daughter every
Another
weekend.
argument, hour-long argument.
GIF is a peanut butter. GIF is a graphical interchange format. So graphical, graphical, GIF.
So Cory,
GIF is graphic.
Cory shared the GIF of Maverick giving thumbs up, and I think what he was really doing was thumbs up to all those answers. But we are now doing interpretive. This is like categories or pick, whatever. Gonna have it. I'm gonna let you, Cory, to use your words instead of your graphics.
So as much as I appreciate and understand all the dictionary definitions or the textbook definitions of product management, you said ideal. And because you said ideal, I went to what would be the coolest thing that I could do. And I love Maverick, but I've been watching a lot of stuff about how Tom Cruise, the producer, got that movie made and how he went through all the departments and his attention to detail and all the things that he did to make that as a product. And I loved every bit of it. And it's one of the things where, building cool ideas with great teams that people love That's what I want product management to be. That's what I want to do. That's what I think people get really excited about. There was a video, God, it's 10 years old now almost, of the Nordstrom Innovation Lab, where a whole team descended into a Nordstrom's into their sunglasses space, and they built from scratch an app in a week with customers on the floor, understanding their needs, understanding what what they liked, what worked, what didn't work. And they were building cool shit in the presence of customers. And I want to do that. I think that's the ideal. You're building things with customers that they absolutely love.
So first
That's
things
brilliant.
first.
I mean, that's basically the empowered team triad of all the people you need, a product manager, a designer, a developer, but most importantly, in the presence of a customer, not with a customer surrogate.
Yep. And so in that gift that I shared, it's not a clip from the movie. It's a clip from the shooting of the 800 hours that they shot of in-flight real sequences of Tom going, that was a great shot. I liked that. That's why I love that image in my head of this is a guy who understands how movies get made, what people want to see, how to go about getting the best out of everybody that's involved in that production, and how to put out an amazing product.
So it really was Tom Cruise was the answer.
Tom Cruise, the producer, yes.
Yep.
Not Tom Cruise, yeah.
Well, producer is an interesting word too.
Yeah.
I've often wondered if producer isn't the right metaphor for product management.
Producer, director, there's a toss up there for me.
No, I actually do like that idea, because you think about somebody who's coordinating the whole. I've done a lot of work in the HR executive space, and there's this whole project-based economy that's coming up where you're going to see, in the entertainment industry, for a movie, that is an entity. It is an LLC or something like that. And they bring everybody together for a 12-week, 12-month, whatever it is. Then that entity goes away. And so they're really expert at how do we coordinate all these pre-production stuff, directors and actors during production, post-production, and get everything done as a business. And it really is the managing of the business. So
and to that point, independent contractors who need guidance at the vision level and right. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we would all talk about.
And
let's let Faith jump in here. With three guys who've been talking about airplane movies for quite a while.
I'm not especially a Tom Cruise fan, so I have somehow managed to dodge watching Top Gun, despite having developed a love of action movies. But I keep thinking I'm going to have to just bite the bullet, because it's become such a cultural touchstone that I need to watch.
Well, specifically, I believe this is about Top Gun 2, the one that just came out, not the original one.
Right.
Which everybody pretty much agrees is pretty rock solid.
And you need to see it in the theater. Wait, but we're back to three guys talking about movies with planes and not letting Faith.
So, I mean, to bring it kind of back to product management, I mean, I do kind of like both those metaphors, producer and director. And it's, a lot of disciplines I've been exposed to have sort of gone through an evolution. And at some point in the evolution, the topic of how to define the discipline becomes the most talked about thing in that disciplines community. I think the user experience world went through this, information architects went through it, business analysts went through it. And it seems like it's just a phase of discipline development where everyone wants to talk about, we are this and we are not that. And if only everyone outside of our discipline understood our discipline the way we do, then the world would be golden. And one thing that's kind of interesting about that producer metaphor, maybe a little simplistic, because large projects have multiple producers with different kinds of responsibilities in terms of how much they're actually involved in organizing and getting things done and that coordinating effort. And I think there is a difference within product management between people who are sort of more coordination, oversight, strategic vision, and maybe more the director metaphor maybe applies to others better, where it's more about the director, I think, is more involved in how are we going to get the shot? What are the shots we need? How do I get the most out of the cast, the crew, maybe especially the on-screen talent, though? Is the script good enough? Do we need to rewrite something? Are the pieces coming together and working or not? So that all seems like a big element of product management as well. But maybe there's sort of two flavors of product manager who are kind of emphasizing that differently.
Could be the strategic role. The strategy role is the producer, in the more product planning or technical engaging on the day-to-day with the delivery organizations is the director. Mm-hmm. If we pull that analogy forward.
And I suspect that even as we speak, somebody in Hollywood right now is saying, we need a better metaphor or another metaphor for what is the role of the director and what is the role of the producer. Maybe it's like the producer is a product manager, but I've always thought that the producer was a business person and the director was an artist.
Well, let's look at that a little. And I'm going to spin a little into Cory's answer and talking about the Nordstrom Innovation Lab and this director creative type thing, and start saying, often when we hear product design people, especially from the Stanford School of Design, they are moving design upstream into what we would consider more product management and the understanding of the market and that type of stuff. And so when you talked about the Nordstrom Innovation Lab, Cory, in my head, I kept thinking, boy, that sounds a lot like what people would say is design and what would happen in a design study, going out and interacting. And at some point we need to understand, and we're going to talk about it later. We're going to talk about the confusion between some of the perimeter roles, right? But I think that's part of the problem is if product management spans this life cycle, it could be the business side, but also is engaging in the day-to-day and all the way from stakeholders, from leadership and strategy and finance to business unit and general management type stuff to design and development, and then even support and marketing and sales. It's like we touch the whole span of the organization. And I was just re-listening to our challenges for the practice of product management one we did earlier this year. And some of the same answers we talked about here. Wouldn't it be great if people looked at us as a practice, just like they look at accounting as a practice? And the hard thing with that is I could argue that product management, when done, at least the way I see product management, is the truly only cross-functional role in the organization outside of the CEO, which is, I think, where that analogy comes in, where we're the CEO of the product, because we truly are cross-functional. And there was not a question there for you, but it's sort of a putting it out there. Maybe this is coming back to what Faith was saying, right? Is the product management the producer and designer the director, because the designer is more the creative?
Well, there's a reason that I like this analogy better than talking about more and more academic definitions of product management, because that is a rabbit hole I don't want to go down. There are some people who live in that rabbit hole, and I'm glad that they're over there doing that, but I'd much rather talk about the real world. What are we doing? Let's find an analogy that makes sense and let's build something that's useful. And finding analogies that are not academic definitions of them or straining the limits of whatever, like Faith was talking about, of, we do it this way, but we do it this way, but we do it. And there's this constant infighting versus, hey, bigger picture, what are you trying to do? Let's go do that. That's where I think that analogy is more playful, if I could use that word, more useful, and gets people talking like this instead of, well, we use sprints. Well, we use 3-week iterations. Well, we use a roadmap that has, I don't care.
but the problem is we start talking sprints, you're already pulling product management into agile and the development cycles, not the product management cycles. One of the things that spurred this week's topic was a thread I was engaging with two of my favorite product management leaders on Twitter, John Cutler and Christina Wadke. It started with how Stanford defined the role of design, and I saw, well, some of those upstream things sound more like product management, and Christina, who has written some great books, Radical Focus on OKRs is amazing if you haven't read it. She chimed in. She said, actually, that's one of the things, and she teaches at the Stanford Design School. She says, well, that's one of the things I sort of disagree with. They tend to bring that a little more forward, and the term product design was what was used there instead of just designer. And she said, unfortunately, it's the Facebooks and that type of stuff who've taken this from Stanford, and now it's become a propagation of product design, now taking it more upstream. And I said, then how would you define product management? And the consensus from, again, two thought leaders who I think are amazing, Christina Wacky and John Cutler, was product management is about managing the business of the product. And so this is where I like this analogy, pulling us up to the producer, which is the business role.
And, even in the Nordstrom's example, I'm inclined to say, who decided we would go create the app in the first place? There are so many ways we could deploy our resources. What is the big problem that we're trying to solve? And not, we need to move this button, right? Or it needs to have an easy way of sharing. Not down at the feature function level, but, there are so many things in the world need fixing. Which one should we prioritize to allocate our resources to? Which I would consider as well, the product management role vis-a-vis Nordstrom.
Who greenlit the idea and who let it happen? Who made space for it?
Yeah.
Well, beyond even beyond that, how did the idea come about that there's some problem to which one tactical response is to conduct a design exercise in real time in a shopping mall? Like somewhere upstream, there was a whole series of decisions, and this was maybe just one of an array of tactics that somebody decided would further some strategic objective. So what was that? And, was that a product management decision, or was that kind of in the service of some larger sort of business goal? Mm-hmm. Some of this really makes me wonder if there are, as Grant mentioned, we touch so many things: marketing, sales, finance. All those disciplines, all those functions are full of people who think it's their job to do these things. And I think that's maybe part of where, to whatever extent, there's maybe some friction or fuzziness, because maybe we are, how does our particular perspective or our relationship with those disciplines, are we in a position of supporting and enabling their work? Are we in a position of collecting and synthesizing their work? Are we in a role of where we're kind of like sort of packaging up that wisdom from the different disciplines and turning it into something coherent that can be acted on? Or are we more supplying things to those other disciplines for them to, do something with? And maybe it's a little bit of both, maybe it's
I was going to say yes. I was going to say yes. I think it's a little bit of both. The way you described it, though, it made me start thinking, is product management just cat herding? Right?
God,
we've got all these other functions who have ideas of what they would be doing on their own, walking around, and our job is to bring them all together to make sure we're all working on the same thing in the same direction. And maybe I'm, getting a little loosey with the definition, but as Faith was talking, like, we've got design people who have ideas of what design wants to do, and development people have design ideas of what development wants to do, and marketing people, and sales people, and support people, and finance people, and strategy people. All these people have different ideas of if we didn't give them direction, what they would do. And product management needs to, and this is where I'm trying to bring it back to that both, Faith. Product management needs to both take insight and input from them, right? What they see in the market, what they're learning, why do they think that, process all that, help us make a decision of what we should focus on. So this is the triangle coming to the middle. What do we focus on? And then there's the triangle going out. Then based on our aggregation of information and insight and hypotheses, how do we enable them to succeed? And so product management could be the one. Now let's take back Nordstrom. Product management could have talked to design, and design said, God, we do need to improve the pickup of sales of sunglasses or whatever it may be. The design person goes, you know, it would be great if we could do this. And development's like, oh, I think we should do this. And the product manager may synthesize these, take them to leadership and say, okay, here's the problem we're trying to solve. Here's the problems we identified we could be focused on. Here's the one we decided to focus on. And in talking to the team, we think this is the right first step. And then the team, then they can get commit, right? And then once they have commit, they can say, okay, let me go talk to the general manager of the store in Seattle or in Chicago, or wherever, or make sure that we have the resources there to support them and give them what they need. Clear the floor for them. You know, and I'm saying that was more figuratively because I'm sure they're not clearing the floor because they want customers on the floor. But, you know, I could see it being those both.
They have to move that grand piano aside that's by the elevator in order to, you know, create some working space. You know, but kind of tying it back to that idea about playfulness that Cory introduced, I wonder if the fact that we are not in any of those specific disciplines maybe does give product management a little bit more latitude to take a more playful or creative approach in the work because we're not ears deep in balance sheets or, you know, social media campaign planning or whatever it might be. And so maybe it could be that product management is maybe a uniquely playful, like inherently playful kind of discipline, sort of in the same way that you dump out a barrel of wooden blocks and play with them.
That's I'm working that one through in my head.
Right, me too.
I think playful, if we can come to it in and I'm going to maybe wrongly take playful to mean open-minded and with interest, right? If we're passionate about the problem we solve, we can now get people outside of their box to think creatively. That's where the playful in my head comes with, to come up with that type of stuff. The place where I tend to see, and I'm now answering a question, which I always chide Steve for answering one of my future questions. I see design as this place where I see the most toe stepping, right? I've heard design people talk about, you know, no, design should be doing the research, not product management. And I look at some of that place.
And when we've heard that, it's even funnier because it's like, we want to do market research because product management sucks at it. Well, hey, maybe we should start with who's the appropriate person to do the market research and then make sure they have the skills. I mean, this is why so many product managers are doing prototyping and UI design, because product managers suck at it less than developers do. But the real answer is to hire product designers, right? But I think, you know, there's some, you know, bringing all this, synthesizing everything I've just heard, I think there is a, not cat herding, but a synthesizing role of saying, you know what, I know the sales team is talking to people. Each salesperson has talked to ones of people, but I need to aggregate not one sales guy's ideas, but all of them. And marketing has apparently no desire to ever actually talk to anyone. So they do surveys, and they do apparently subscribe to every analyst firm available. So we can synthesize some of that, and support engages with people, et cetera, et cetera. Synthesizing all that, but also synthesizing our data. You know, the data that we have in our in-app systems, or data we have from other sources that, of course, salespeople probably don't know about. Plus, and here's where it gets weird, plus our own intuition, because we've been around this business for a while.
So I'm going to make another strange analogy, if I may, mainly because of something Faith said, which was the different parts. So think of it as assembly. Think of all these cool toys that we can use to help achieve a vision or a goal, whatever. And part of the job as a product manager is putting all those things together in the needed concentration to produce the thing that we want, whether that's, a little more marketing right now, a little more development, a little more design, whatever. But we put all things together, kind of like assembling a sandwich, and we put it on the plate, and then we give it to the person who we hope will consume it and enjoy it. And if they don't, then okay, cool. What's the different idea? And I bring it up again as a cooking metaphor because we have an idea of what the customer would like, or they have told us they like these types of things. Great. How do I use the tools at my assembly, or the tools that I have to put together something that they would enjoy?
I like that. I'm going to go back to something Steve had said a little bit earlier. Have you guys seen the videos from the product manager from Tesla talking about their job and their role that have gone viral?
Not yet.
No.
So these two female product managers, they happened to be at a pool. They were talking about what product management does, and they got a lot of flack. Product management can't be at a pool. And then she responded, sort of some of that flack and feedback. And she's like, the thing is, you know what? Yeah, engineers are great. We need them. They're expensive too. And it's not worth their time to be going and doing this market. They should be spending their time designing and building stuff, right? Not going and doing this market research, not managing the business side of the product. And this is why we need the role. Part of it is let's have specialty, right? Let's let the designers focus on design, the engineers and developers focus on engineering and development, and product management focus on helping focus them on the right things. What?
Management.
Yeah.
Let product management focus on management.
Yeah, of the product, not of people, although you're doing it in this matrix cross-functional way. Mm-hmm. So it was an interesting, if you haven't seen him, it's well worth looking at. I think she does a great job, especially in the response video, talking about the importance of product management, allowing the specialists to be specialists. But that's the same exact thing with sales. Allow sales to focus on sales.
Mm-hmm. Right? Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I know I have a reputation for dissing on salespeople, but largely it's because I wish salespeople were given the freedom to be salespeople. I'd like them to sell what we have for people who want to buy it. And everything else we ask of them, would you please come to this meeting and tell us something about the customer? Is like, wow, not their job. And yet they do it because they have a lack of trust that anybody else will have the market insights that they have. But the challenge, and I'm going to leverage Cory's sandwich concept here. The problem is with a lot of this input, people say, okay, yes, I do want a sandwich. I'd like anchovies on my sandwich. And you're like, okay, that is the wrong answer. No one wants anchovies on their sandwich. You may want anchovies on your pizza or on your Caesar salad, but even that's the questionable one. So
I just wanted it in my Caesar salad dressing.
Yeah. And so, there is a judgment level here of building a consistent product. And just for the sake of sticking with the cooking metaphor, if we have an Italian restaurant, your sandwich idea is a bad idea at the business level.
Yeah, I can see that. Any last thoughts on the question, or can we move on to the poll?
Well, I will add, our goal is to turn good ideas into successful products systematically.
Yes, that was
those
your
answer. Of you who have gone through fundamentals of managing products have learned.
Yes, and that's what product management does, is to help build that system and to execute on that system.
And the early version of that quote did not have the word good in it. Our originally, it was our goal is to turn ideas into products systematically.
And there's a lot of examples of that.
There's a lot of examples of that. It was systematic in the way that we built this terrible product or built a product for this terrible idea.
Which is where some of the process people go into it, right? Process for process sake is not good if it doesn't deliver the.
And with today's processes, we can build the wrong product faster than ever.
Yes, we can. All right, we'll get to the poll here. Our poll question: what is the most common cause of product management not being clearly defined? The options were product management not being understood by senior leadership, product leadership not providing proper air cover to their team, product managers trying to be all things to all people, agile,
with
and
zero
other.
votes, I see.
Agile, that's the tweet. No.
Right.
That's what I wanted to put in there, but I didn't. Or other, it depends. And, overwhelmingly clear 58% of the voters said product management not being understood by senior leadership. And I see a couple of people who voted that way on here. Steve, talk to me.
That's how I voted. And my big rant is senior leadership doesn't often know what they want from product management. And I'm encouraged, actually, when I talk to investment people. These private equity firms come into these companies they've invested in, and they say, all right, the first thing we need to do is get some things in place. You need customer success. You need a method for your selling, and we need to stand up a product management function. It's like no ifs, ands, or buts about it, which I think is rather brilliant. And yet what they're encountering is senior leadership saying, well, why would I want those things?
And they don't want to be so heavy-handed that they force it. They want people to make the decisions on their own.
No, I think the guys I've been working with have been pretty heavy-handed about it and good on them, yes, we need customer success. Yes, we need a sales methodology instead of just selling whatever anybody asks us for, like that Cory sandwich at my Italian restaurant. But ultimately, it's senior leadership. And I think the other problem that we have, and maybe you're going to have a thing here in a second that I'm not aware of, but as I was talking about earlier today with somebody, the real problem is product management hasn't defined product management. Development has defined product management. Design is redefining product management. So am I getting ahead of you?
No, you're not. But actually, you're actually validating why I voted for product managers trying to be all things to all people. We tried to be these utility players. We try to fill in where we can, and it enables all the other functions to define us as their
go-to
resource to them instead of a resource to the business.
Yeah. And, I've seen Scrum people and Agile people talk at conferences, and they are truly befuddled that there is anything beyond working with development in the scope of product management. When I talk to salespeople, they say, I assume that product managers are sitting by the phone, anxiously waiting my call. And we're like, no, actually, we hate it when you call, because every question you have has already been answered on SharePoint, which you can't apparently navigate.
Well, part of it is, for me, I've decided my new poll strategy is to be provocative instead of trying to win every poll. Let me go to one of the areas that I think is the provocative conversation, which is why I said.
And you have provoked me.
And so, just like in politics or even in competitive strategy, if you do not define your position, your competitors or other people will, and it's not competition, the business. If you let sales define product management to senior leadership, they will. If you let everybody's going to define it as a servant to them. And so that's why I voted for.
If you don't take control of your calendar, everyone else will.
Yeah. And so this is why I aim back to the cat herding, right? We need to be the people who, instead of letting each person define what they want to do, we need to be the who brings them together. And that Faith, you did a great job with that. I'm going to go to Faith now. Did you vote for product management not being understood by senior leadership as well, Faith?
I did vote for not being understood by senior leadership.
Has your opinion changed at all by my provocative nature of?
Admit it.
Well, no. I think even as I wrote my comment, I kind of evolved my own opinion, because and your comments have kind of contributed to that evolution, in that I'm not sure it's necessarily senior leadership's job to understand our discipline. And this kind of dovetails with what Steve was saying. I think that if we can't articulate what it is, there's no reason we should expect anybody else to understand it. That is like
total provocative genius. If we can't agree on what it is, how can we get
Yeah.
other people to?
Yeah.
From
Even
the
among product management thought leaders, right?
Yeah.
Many of the product management people we read are saying, product management's job is limited to reading aloud from Jira to the development team.
Yeah, and I think from the outside looking in, right, from the outsider vantage point, depending on which outsider vantage point, product management just looks like marketing, or it just
Mhm.
looks like development. And
Depending on your point of view,
There's-
yeah.
not really a lot of, kind of beyond the event horizon, there's really no visibility into how product management is doing what it's doing. And I think kind of one thing I mentioned in my comment that I'm not really sure what to do with, but I was kind of an instinct that feeds into this. There's a thing that feeds into this somehow, and I'm not sure how, that I don't think senior leaders have yet come to value product management as a discipline, the practitioners of which have something to contribute to business at the managerial or executive level. And so I think there's a perception that there's all these kind of things that happen in product from different UX work, which itself has, kind of a fragment, if you look at it, put it through a prism. And, the whole Scrum product owner thing kind of muddies the waters. And I think at a certain level, there's a perception that no matter what flavor of product management, no matter which of those things you think it is, it's still not something that rises to the level of an executive perspective. And I think most of us, like serious product managers, particularly senior and experienced practitioners, would believe that they are contributing at an executive level and should be valued at that level. And I'm not sure that that really has kind of filtered out yet. Like, you have CPOs at some companies, but maybe there's a lot of companies where they have just not yet quite developed an understanding that transcends the contributions of these like various tactical roles. I'm just going to leave that there. I don't really know what to do with it.
Well, we're actually going to get into it in the next question. If we could hold that, Steve. Can we hold that,
I may forget
Steve?
it by then, but okay.
I wanted to give Cory a chance because he had voted for leadership, senior leadership, but we hadn't gotten his 2 cents in before we moved to the next question, even though Faith led right into the next question.
So I usually default to placing the core problem at leadership, and that was an easy answer for me. That's why I did that. But as you were reading that question, I had a thought, which is, I think we're mostly preaching to the choir here. We're mostly all talking the same things to the same people. And when you were reading that, it got me thinking, which is, if senior leadership understood product management, or if they honestly let it happen, as does happen in some cases, there are companies and products whose the CEO was the product manager, or that has a product background, or it was in engineering, but really has a good relationship with product or design or something else. We see it every day. Those companies don't have this problem, do they? Or at least not to this degree. So if they understood it, or if they let it happen, I don't think we would have these same types of issues that we keep circling back on, at least that I keep circling back on for the last 10 years, because I've never worked in an organization that understood it or let it happen right.
So this, to me, what you just described is the founder who founded a company, a product, because they knew the problem so bad. They often came from the industry, and they were the product manager because they had all the knowledge. Here's the problem. Here's the pain. Here's how we prioritize it, right? Often that's the founder who comes from there. I met with the founder of iSIMS back years ago, and it's like, I was a recruiter. I understood the talent acquisition was more like CRM than it was like HRM, right? And so I could understand and speak to the problem and the personas, and I could help prioritize. And they played that product management role as a founder.
So it's similar. I saw this on Twitter the other day too, which is, there should be, a chief product officer should have line level experience as a product manager, right? That was, I completely agree with that. Does
Strongly
a
agree with
does a CEO need to have chief product officer experience? Probably not, but would it be cool if they did? Would a CPO that got promoted to CEO have these same problems in the organization? Probably not.
Yeah, and I think that we've talked about this in previous things about how won't it be cool when a lot of CEOs come from product, not from sales, or product, not from engineering.
But again, to the reason to answering the question the way I did, and the point that I brought up was, until senior leadership understands what product and product management does for your business, we will continue to have these conversations around these same topics and not get anywhere.
I completely agree. And I'm going to go back to Faith's answer, because Faith made me think about the first question today, which is, which role has the most confusion with product management roles and responsibilities? And what I started thinking about when Faith was talking about it is, oh, am I allowed to curse? Oh, shit. Product design, when they think of the role of product management, they think about those overlaps with product management. They think product management is just that overlap with product design. Engineering thinks it's just that overlap with engineering. Marketing thinks it's just that overlap with marketing. So each of these functions views product management from their lens and thinks that that's it. Of course we don't need them. I can do that stuff.
The elephant parable.
Yeah. The only people who I don't see saying that is the finance and leader, finance, the people who are like, oh God, we need somebody to manage this business. Right? Who can look at this and look at the P&L and make decisions and help with the strategy to figure out where it's going. It's from the leadership down. We don't have that confusion. And so I asked this question because I was thinking, of course it's design, because we see that. But now, Faith, you got me thinking that I think if you go do any function that interacts with product management, the way if you ask them to define product management, they would define it as where the overlap with them is, not everything else. So that was sort of not an answer to this question. So I guess now it's an all of the above, because everybody who has an overlap with product management thinks that that's the most confusion there is, because they don't know why I need product management. Steve, do you remember what you were going to say?
Well, I want to add to what you said, but also, yes, I do remember because I wrote a note. That's certainly what I encountered in the number of engagements I've had with Agile thought leaders, and I'm all on board with Agile. I mean, don't get me wrong, but they defined product owner because they didn't know what a product manager did. But this is what we in development need from that role. So to your point, product owner is product manager as seen through the lens of development. And if you go around the table, sure enough, I think you're absolutely right that you ask marketing, what does product management do? And they go, well, I don't really know what they do. But if we hired some good writers and some good domain experts, and like a full-time blogger, then we wouldn't need a product manager anymore. And VP of sales says, well, I don't know what the product managers do. I know they do great demos. So, everybody's looking at it through their own lens, right? But the converse of that I thought of in when Faith was talking was everybody wants a seat at the table. Every conversation I've ever had with anybody, they're like, well, support should have a seat at the leadership table. UX should have a seat at the sales engineering should have a seat. Everybody wants a seat at the table. And that table starts getting pretty flippin' big if everybody's got a seat at the table. I mean, now we've got Congress, right? And it seems to me that if we can get the president to see product management is business planning. Oh, here's one other rant, which is worthy of a rant button, actually. Here we go. No, I'm not going to do it. Never mind. All right, I'll turn off my rant button. Okay, so everybody wants a seat at the table. There we go. And so my answer to this question, to wrap this up, because I've been talking too long, is product management has the most confusion about product management.
Which goes back to my answer in the poll.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. Faith, because you put in there, nobody wants to sit at the kids' table, to sort of play on Steve's analogy. What's your take on where do you see the most confusion?
I mean, I think you really described it well, right? Each of these other groups thinks that product management is their handmaiden, and I think extending what Steve
Almost
said,
like the TV show.
not not like that. Oh my goodness. But kind of extending, building on what you said, I think marketing wants product to, I get asked, how should we position it? How should we message it? What are the key benefits? And okay, so then you're telling me that as marketers, you are people who know how to execute campaigns. You're not people who know how to think about the market and our product market fit, and you want me to do that. Sales is like, well, I need to sell. I need to, I want to be excited. I want you to give me new features so that I can drum up the emotional energy to go out there and withstand 1,000 no's a day and sell something. And Grant alluded to developers, wanting that prioritization, like, tell us what's important, tell us what to do first. And so on the one hand, it's sort of confusion. Everyone has a different perspective to share with product management, and everyone wants something different from product management. It seems like it's hard for product managers in some situations to find a way to kind of sort of elevate themselves above all of that. Here's what I want. In order to sort of do that synthesis work that one of you used that word, because there's so much coming from every side, and there's no one really. Is marketing going to support what sales wants product management to do? I mean, not any discipline, right? They don't really necessarily care what you're doing for the other departments. They want their particular need met. So I don't know. Grant, you asked what I thought was the biggest source of confusion. I'm not sure there is just one, as much as it can be maybe hard for a product manager to find an ally who will help them, like, support their effort to balance all those competing demands, or will kind of help clarify what those various contributions should be and in what measure. And how much does it depend on the company that you're in? Maybe a company with a very strong marketing department that does have strong domain understanding and market understanding, and a good tradition of how to message to their customer base or to new customers. Maybe they are less interested in having that from their product manager. Maybe other companies are stronger in some other area, and maybe that contributes to this sort of diffuse understanding of product management. Is different companies may have a different experience of what they need or want from the discipline.
So to Steve's point, the role that has the most confusion with product management roles and responsibilities is product management. And part of it's also these, not only do they have needs from us that should be our role in helping and collaborating with them, they also like to hand us stuff they don't want to do, right? And we get filled with doing that type of stuff. Cory.
So to directly answer the question, I think I was trying to think of which role, but these things all have a common thread, which is anybody who thinks that the PM job is to deliver what they are asking for, who says, just give me my thing, that's wrong. Instead of elevating the product as the business and seeing that as the driver for innovation, value, revenue, customer service, whatever you want to call it. There's
the business of the product. The
business of the product, right? There was something you were saying about overlap that I wanted to bring up because I think it's important to touch on. There is overlap with every group in product. I don't look at it as overlap. I look at it as collaboration. we have to collaborate with different groups where we have those overlaps because we know a little bit, but you guys are the experts. Our T-shaped skills, you guys go really deep on this. We go really shallow, and we need to use your skills again to get the job done. But we have to collaborate with you on that. We can't just say that we're going to do the job and not you. I think that's where people get into the headbutting and the overlap conversation of, well, that's my job. Actually, it's our job. You have more skills than I do. I can talk to you about it and you can tell me things I don't know, and I can tell you things you don't know. And that's where we collaborate and make a better product.
So I'm going to use that as a pivot to the next question. And we've got a little time for this question before we get to the lightning round. As a product leader, how would you approach getting a clear definition and understanding in your organization? What I was thinking is the way you eliminate the confusion is you shift them from overlap to collaboration. If somebody sees that as an overlap, that's where they see it as stepping on each other's toes, right? That's what I do. Where for some reason, whether it's my head or whatever, when I hear people talk about things dovetailing, I think of that like, ooh, dovetail is nice, overlap is not. And if we dovetail, we do that handoff, proverbial handoff in the track. We really look at those intersections so as collaboration points, not as overlap points or redundancy points.
What I have said for years is we don't want handoffs, we want handshakes.
So dovetails fit together perfectly. Why is that a bad metaphor?
Because I don't know. It just to me was, I always think of dovetail, the visual of things coming together. There's some overlap there. When
you look at high-end furniture, what joints do they use in their door constructions? They use dovetails. Why? Because it's the strongest joint.
Well, I think it was for me just thinking of the overlap of the dovetail aspect.
Right? Oh, I'm happy to run down a metaphor. Trust me.
I know. You've now changed my whole opinion on dovetail. It's no longer viewed as overlap. But I think that some people use dovetail as where do we come together? Where is there overlap on our work together? But now thinking about it from the carpentry angle of dovetail joints, I actually think there's something to be made there about dovetail and making it stronger. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah,
Cory.
But I was going to take the dovetail thing too far. But as we've pointed out, we are doing that interface with multiple others, not just a single other.
Yeah, which makes it difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, along with finance, I mean, I think that we're pretty much the only horizontal department that interfaces with virtually everyone.
And
HR.
And this is me. I maybe don't hate on finance as much as Steve hates on sales, but finance has been a bane at times for me. And finance's role is in a report structure for everybody else. They are about here's your budget, here's your cost, not about same with HR. HR is like, what are your staffing needs and how do we help you do that with benefits? They're not about solving the market problem. They are a support role to help those divisions operate as divisions. They are not a support role in helping get the whole organization lined up around solving a problem.
And yet I have met many CFOs who say, first of all, that they think they are creative, which I've always found amusing. That seems like the last thing you would want would be creative financing. But
I come from GE. We know what that's like.
Yeah. Right. It seems to me that these folks see themselves as business strategists in their role as CFO. Not all of them, some of them.
There's a big difference between a controller and a CFO, and too often CFOs are controllers. And the CFO needs to be a little more strategic. You need to get them outside of their FAFSA or whatever their boxes are for finance and reporting. The controller is about managing the risks and not getting creative. The CFO needs to understand where the business is trying to go and how can we leverage finance to help do that. So I think that the CFO can get there.
That actually reminds me of something Larry Ellison said. if you ask a lawyer if it's okay to do something, they will instantly say no. Instead, what he says is, I'm going to do this, reduce the risk for me, but no is not an option.
Yeah. No, I get it. Let's get it. If we could get a couple quick takes on this question from Faith and Cory. Faith, I'll start with you.
I was just curious if exploring that idea of T-shaped people that Cory mentioned might provide a path forward for some part of this discussion, because Cory, you talked about the different disciplines that might be on the cap of the T, but not what is the stem of the T for a product manager, uniquely that stem of the T. Where are product managers expected to be deep and kind of distinct from whatever role they came out of. Obviously, if you came out of development or you came out of UX or whatever, you're going to be deep there. But what is the stem of the product management T? Maybe exploring that will go some part way to helping to be able to communicate to the rest of the organization what is sort of, I don't know, the unique value proposition, if you will, of product management.
I like that. I'm digging into the role we play for each of them. We're a complicated product management. And if we understand the needs of 360, all sides of the organization we need, that will help us better define how we do the role. Faith, that's a great insight. Thank you. Cory, how about you?
So I'm thinking of the T shape, the deep T, and I come back to something Steve said a lot, which is problem managers. Maybe that's what we should be. I think that's a great thing, is understanding that problem. I think understanding the customers, different people understand customers at different ways. Marketing understands them to buy. Sales understands what motivates them to purchase or something like that. I think vision and strategy are two big things that product managers should go deep in understanding skill wise. And then I think problems. So I would say those three.
I like that. And with the vision and strategy, I'd say at least some fundamentals of finance, right? If you're managing the product, you need to understand the P&L of the product and how to make decisions on a basis on that. So awesome. Let's get to our lightning round. The lightning round today is, what can happen when product management is clearly defined and understood in the organization? So aspirationally, if we get this, elusive situation, this utopia where product management is clearly defined and understood in the organization, what is possible? What can happen, Faith?
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Okay, I'm putting you down.
Unicorns and rainbows. No, I think if product management is clearly defined and understood, then I think it can make the entire organization more effective. All of the other groups can align their efforts in pursuit of a set of goals and objectives that product management has been able to, to synthesize and communicate and gain not so much buy-in, but at least be able to articulate this is where we need to head and get everyone in train. I think everyone becomes, happier, works more confidently, and customers are going to be more happy with the resulting product. You're going to be able to deliver more.
So this is a lightning round.
Often.
This is lightning round, Faith. You're like,
sorry.
You're making up for the fact that we don't have more than 4 people on this. No,
sorry.
I agree with everything you said. It's just making it more difficult on Cory, Steve, and I as you keep ticking off some of these things. But I think the core of we focus people on the right things and we enable them to do it to be successful, I think is great. I love that. Cory.
I'm going to go back to my Tom Cruise Maverick gift, which is have fun doing cool shit.
So if product management is clearly defined, we can have fun doing cool shit. Obviously, Faith, you didn't encroach anything on where Cory was. Steve.
Lightning round, I guess I'll say success. Alignment results in success. Product success.
I agree. I understand what you're saying. And I'm going to just build on that and everything Faith said with yes and. which delivers sustainable, profitable growth to the organization. We now can do this sustainably. It's not just a system for product management. That system of product management, which is when it is clearly defined, enables us to continually grow and grow profitably. It's become sustainable, profitable growth, which I think is the outcome every company is looking for. So
That's a good.
What a great conversation. I say that every week, and every week I mean it. But what a great conversation delving into some of the almost self-reflective stuff product management has to do to look at. We should come to understand product management first before we can expect other people to understand product management. But a great conversation. Many thanks to Faith, Cory, and Steve for participating, everybody in the community who participated during the week. And we do this every week. On Monday, the question goes in. On Wednesday, we have the poll. And on Friday, we have these wonderful conversations. Faith, Cory, Steve, thank you so much. We'll see you next week in the community. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.